Hello, everybody, and welcome to How to Get Hired. I am Bill, the company's expert, and this is my Q&A live stream where I get to answer your questions on anything to do with careers, whether it's a job interview, where to discover jobs, what direction your career should go, different skills for your career, this kind of thing. Anything is on the table. So if you're seeing my face right now, you should also see a chat box somewhere nearby. Get in the chat, ask me some questions. I don't have an agenda. I don't have anything that I've planned to talk about. I'm simply here to answer questions. So give me some questions, whatever you're wondering, whatever you're struggling with. Let me know what it is, and I will try and help if I possibly can. That is the point. And David Jones is here. David Jones says, looking forward to this. Well, that's great, David Jones. Hopefully I don't disappoint. I guess the pressure's on. Yeah, whatever you're struggling with, let me know. Something I did want to talk about while we're waiting for the first questions to roll in is something I've gotten. It's quite common comment on my YouTube channel. People respond this way. They say, what if the interviewer asks me again? Like, for example, you're in a job interview, they ask you a question and you give an answer, right? And it's a strategic answer. Maybe they ask you something sensitive, like, what is your weakness or something like that? And they say, okay, great. But what if they ask me again, And, my response to that is, well, answer again, If people don't have the right to certain bits of information, like, for example, let's say they ask you, what are you currently making, right? What's your current salary? Now, let's be honest, that's none of their business, okay? It's actually, depending where you are in the world, in some jurisdictions, some countries, it's not legal for them to ask that. Others, it is, right? But let's be honest, it's none of their business. How much some other company is paying you is none of their business, right? You don't work for them, and you're not under any obligation to disclose that, right? So you say, well, that's personal confidential information. I just, as a personal policy, I don't disclose that to people. And they say, okay. But then they ask you again, right? What do? Well, you answer again. You give the same answer again. There's a lot of people, especially when we're young, right? We find the whole thing a bit intimidating, and we crack under that pressure, and we go, okay, and you just give them the answer. Don't fall for that. It's a very cheap, basic tactic to get you to disclose something you don't want to disclose. And it's not to your advantage to do this. So give the same answer again, right? If they have the audacity to ask the same question twice, right? Thinking that you'll give a different answer, or they'll overcome resistance to answering. Don't be afraid to give the same answer twice, right? Stand your ground. Okay, Mickey9 is here. Welcome back, Bill. Thank you, Mickey9. Mickey9 was here for my previous live stream called Side Hustle Ideas, which I really enjoy doing. Okay, so how do you say this? XBLMA. When I looked at that, I saw X-Llama or Blama or Blame. That's what I saw. So XBLMA says, how do you answer a question you don't know? Well, that's an extremely general question to ask somebody, but here's the deal, okay? If we're talking about a job interview, you've got to do some preparation before the job interview. And, you practice answers to specific questions, but more than that, you gotta go in there knowing what you want to tell them and what you are not going to disclose, right? You have to get this straight in your mind. For example, when it comes to your salary requirements, you can't go in there and wing it. You've got to figure out ahead of time how much money you would need for this job to make sense for you, okay? The other thing is that you want to go in there knowing that, okay, in this interview, I want them to understand that I have this capability, I have this skill, I have this training, I have this experience, okay? And I have done this accomplishment in my previous work experience, okay? That's what I want to convey to them over the course of this interview, right? So if they ask you a question you don't know the answer to, okay? Let's say they ask you something that stumps you. They say like, okay, tell me about a time when you were given responsibility, but you were not advanced enough in your career to really deserve that responsibility. And so as a result, you failed in your task. Tell me about a time when that happened to you. And you're drawing a blank because you can't remember an example of when that happened to you, right? Okay, so you should have a fallback answer. Now, if you prepared yourself before the interview and you said, I'm going to go in there making sure that they know that I have this skill, I have this training, I have this accomplishment, you could tell the story of your accomplishment. You could say, well, there was a time when I was given responsibility. It wasn't that so much that I failed, but I was in this situation and they gave me this responsibility and I did this with it and it turned out to be a tremendous success, and that was the first time I ever did that. So, okay, did you exactly answer their question? No, but you told them something awesome about you that they should value because it's pertinent to this job, right? So, okay, you didn't answer exactly what they asked, but you gave them something that's really good for them to know. Okay? And you succeed in conveying that, right? So those things are going to be your fallback answers. When, you don't know what to say, always fall back to the things that you had decided you were wanting to communicate to them. Okay? Find some way of just inserting it, just blurting it out. Here's what I did do. You could even say, well, I haven't been in that situation before, but what I have done is this, right? And that comes across as professional. You're not stumped. You're not hesitant. It flows. It's pertinent. It's relevant. And it's what they want to hear. So there's nothing wrong with doing that. PKMN Promos says, I recognize that name, says, hello, wish you had a good day. Wish you a good day. Well, same to you, PKMN Promos. That's very nice of you. Ashraf Domingo says, are companies allowed to reject you from not being mobile? I mean, I've always used public transport and it's never been a problem. Listen, there are many countries in the world. There's many regions in those countries. There are many legal jurisdictions. I don't know what's legal where you are, but yes, they are. I mean, we have free will. Like, for example, if you want to hire someone to help you move your stuff to a new apartment or a new house or something like that, you need just a buddy or someone, one other person to help you move furniture, right? Do you have the right to reject someone for some random reason? Yes, you do. Companies can reject people for the stupidest reasons, the most illogical reasons. You could be the world's greatest employee that they should hire. You could be someone who could save their company in some situations, but they can still reject you because, I'm sorry, you wore orange to the interview. And for whatever reason, I'm the interviewer and I think orange is unprofessional. It's stupid. They'll never admit to this. They'll never say you were rejected because you wore orange to the interview. They will never disclose this. But it's silly things like that go through people's heads, right? It's just, you can choose which one you like, which candidate you like. And it takes all kinds. This is a rich and wonderful world. We got all kinds of people here and they have all kinds of thought processes and all kinds of preferences. And you see some of the stupidest thought processes making or breaking whether you hire this person or that person, because they're both qualified, right? So it comes down to stupid things like that. So yes, they can say, well, this candidate, they're really good, but maybe they don't own their own car or something. This candidate is equally good, but they have a car. So I'm going to go with them, right? I mean, you know what I mean? That's perfectly legal, and even if it was illegal, how would you know that was the reason why you were rejected? You know what I mean? It's very hard to get that information and prove it and all this kind of thing, right? So, you know what I'm saying? In a more specific situation, then maybe you can go deeper. But that's generally how it works. It's dumb. So you just have to keep trying, right? Because, one day you'll wear orange to an interview and that'll be the reason that they picked you. They said all the other people were wearing white suit, like a black suit with a white shirt. That's boring. That's standard. They don't elevate themselves above the crowd at all. You wore orange. That suggests to me that you have a personality and, you have some panache and some, free thinking ability. And that's the kind of thing we want around here. So I pick you, right? It's total random chance. Okay, where were we here? XBLMA. What about behavioral style questions? What about them? How many questions should I ask at the end of the interview, and what are the best ones to ask? I've done videos on all these. You should check out some of my videos, because each of these I've done a video on, and I can answer much better in the video than I can up front. But just to try and give you some answers, behavioral style questions. Behavioral it just means they're going to ask you something about your past. Okay, what did you do? Tell me about a time you did this. They don't care about your past. The only reason they're asking these questions is that if you say you did a certain thing in the past, they're going on the assumption that you will do that thing in the future if you're put in the same situation. Okay, so make sure that you're telling stories that have been vetted, right? You have prepared them to make sure that this is accurate. If this happened again, I would do the same thing. And it's like, I'm only saying good things, right? How many questions should I ask at the end of the interview? What's the best ones to ask? Okay, bottom line, there's a million questions you could ask. Ask about the role. Can you give me an example? Can you give me an idea of what the typical day for someone in this role would involve, right? Something like that. Why is this role vacant? Did somebody retire, or is this a new position? And then the last question you ask, okay, is always, so where do we go from here? Right? Like, are they going to contact you and tell you if you were accepted or not? Or do you have to find out? Is it going to be 6 months before anybody hears? What's the next step? Should I call to follow up? Where do we go from here? Okay. I am going to get to Pearl's question in a second, but I'll finish with XBLMA. Any tips of doing a 10-minute presentation where I'll be asked technical questions after the presentation? Should I include a PowerPoint over Teams? Once again, I've done a video on that goes extensively into it. I hate PowerPoints. The reason I do is because I find that people that present using PowerPoints, they don't know how to present. They think that just showing a PowerPoint and reading it to you is a presentation, and it isn't. It's boring as hell. And they feel that they don't need to do anything other than just read this slide to you. That's false. Okay, you need to actually present. You can put something. I would limit it, if it were me, for most applications, I would limit it to one slide that kind of is almost like a point form list of topics to jog your memory about what you're going to talk about. And I would talk extemporaneously about what the topic is. Okay, I wouldn't put all the details on a PowerPoint and read it off like a book. I've seen people do that. It's terrible. I've marked, I've rated, I've taught classes where people have to do presentations, and I told the students, if you read verbatim off your PowerPoint, you get points taken off. Okay, you should know the material well enough that you can just talk about it without having to read a speech. Okay, and then the question period will be easier. It'll be more organic because you're used to just talking about it, right? Try to anticipate what the most common questions are and just go from there. If you're doing it over Teams, it's same thing. Same rules apply. Whether it's virtual or face-to-face, it doesn't matter. The same principles apply. Okay, I skipped a couple here. So Pearl says, hello, Bill. An HR specialist recommended replacing skills and professional summary sections with a career accomplishment section highlighting top accomplishments from previous roles. Relevant to the company and role you're expressing interest in, please. What is your opinion? Sure. I mean, I'm not down with the latest jargon and, stupid little HR trends there. The bottom line is that whatever they've asked for in the candidates, whatever they want the candidates to have, that should be prominent on your resume when they first glance at it. Okay? They're not going to read the whole thing. Far from it. They're going to glance at it for a few seconds, and the things they've said in the requirements that they're looking for, those have to pop out. Okay? One way to do it that I think is good, just personally, is you have your resume, and you're going to be using your resume to apply for many different jobs, right? So you don't want to completely rewrite your resume every single time. So as long as the main stuff is there, and then you might tweak it a little for each job. But what you can do is you can highlight the words, so they pop out, right? So for example, in the requirements, if they said, I don't know, architecture degree, experience presenting, and experience networking with investors, something like that. On your resume, it doesn't matter so much where these things are in what section, but if you highlight, architecture degree, you highlight, presenting or experience presenting, and you highlight, networking with investors or something like that. So it pops right out when you see that page. I think that's good. It'll be caught by applicant tracking software because the words are on there. At least to my knowledge. I'm not an expert in the absolute latest in applicant tracking software, but I mean, it's on there in the terms they're using. So it'll pass applicant tracking software. And if a human is reading it, it'll pop right out of the page because you've highlighted those words, right? So if that's what a HR specialist or whatever claims, it doesn't sound stupid. It doesn't sound bad. I mean, if that's the latest thing, sure. It doesn't matter what you call the section, really, as long as it's on there, as long as they see it and it's prominent. Okay, where were we here? Alf2009 says, "Hi, Bill. You spelled my name with a lowercase b, Alf. Do you realize such a mortal insult that is?" I'm just kidding. I'm still looking for a position in Florida. I have 2 people in Florida. We'll see if they can help networking routes. Okay, well, best of luck with that. One contact already gave friend my resume, who gave it to her boss at the mortgage company. The other contact, I will talk to her tonight. This is probably property management. I have 3 careers lucky. Okay, good. Yeah. Listen, you got to spread a wide net. Okay. It's great that you're talking to a couple of people there. That's really good. But odds are it's like the marketing funnel. You guys have heard of something called the marketing funnel? I've talked about it before. It really applies here. It's like, if in order to get one job offer, right, you got to do I don't know, whatever it is, a multiple, 10 interviews, something like that, 5 interviews, 20 interviews. So in order to get 5 to 20 interviews, you have to send in X many applications, 100, 200 applications, whatever it is, right? It's a multiple, right? So it's like a funnel, okay? So, you've got these leads. You can't, I don't want to say you can't, but what you want is you want a lot of leads because most of them are not going to work out. So if you have 20 of them, then the odds of one working out, that's more of a sure thing, right? So it's good that you're pursuing, things with these people. Don't just stop looking for more leads and only pursue these people. Keep looking for more leads. That's all I can say at this point. But it sounds like it's coming along. Okay, XBLMA. Also, please upload this after so I can go back and watch my interviews. Yeah, well, these are available on my channel. You just have to go under the live tab. So you can go and watch them after the fact if you want. Like go to my channel, like the company's expert, the page for my channel, and then you'll see a bunch of tabs. One will be videos, one will be shorts, one will be live streams, one will be like community posts and things like that. Just go to the lives tab and there's all my previous live streams. Go there and just watch all of them. Just take a month, call in sick for a month, and then just watch all my previous live streams, one after another. You will go insane, I guarantee it. That's what I can do for you. XBLMA, will they ask the same questions again they asked at the first stage? Example, they asked me, tell me about yourself. Will they ask that again at the final stage? Probably. Like when you do multiple rounds of interviews, there's several reasons why they do that or why they could be doing it. One of the reasons is because there's different people at the interview, right? So in a sense, it's like the first interview for them, right? So they will most likely ask you some form of icebreaker question, like tell me about yourself, every single time you go there, right? You know, there's many different forms of that question. They might say, please introduce yourself or tell me about your journey so far. You know, I've actually got a video coming out tomorrow that gives you the answer to tell me about yourself, because that's a very popular question. People want to know. And I mean, you know, have you changed? No, you haven't changed. You're still the same person. You still got the same experience and education and ambitions and personality. So your answer is pretty much going to be the same. Don't worry about saying the same thing twice. If they ask the same question twice, give them the same answer twice, right? If they ask the same question twice and you give two different answers, sometimes that can be a red flag. That can like signal that, you know, you're making it up, or you don't know the answer, or you don't know what they want to hear, and you're like changing your story, or, you know, so yeah, don't be intimidated by these silly tactics. They're very basic, elementary tactics. Like, I'm going to ask you a question twice, you know, like they might ask you a question you don't want to answer. They say, you know, what salary did you make in your last job? And you don't want to answer that. You say, well, that's confidential, right? And they go, yeah, I've heard that before. I ask a lot of people that question, but I really got to ask you, what salary did you make in your last job? You see, they ask it again. Now, some people that are really, really nervous and this is maybe their first couple of interviews, they'll crack and they'll say, okay, you know, I can't take this pressure. Okay, I made X at my current job or whatever it is. Right? So you see how that tactic worked, right? It's very basic. It only works on, no offense, but it only works on amateurs, you know? Once you've done several interviews, you know the deal. You've been around the block a few times. So you know some of their more obvious tactics that they do to try and get you to tell them things that you don't want to disclose, right? Where did I leave off here? Okay, so anyway, so hopefully that makes sense. Okay, I think I did. Yeah, I did ALF 2009. One contact already gave a friend of mine. Yeah. Okay. Parya says, how damaging a previous bad job application could be for the future job application? You mean at the same place? If it's not at the same place, it has absolutely no effect whatsoever. Okay. If it's the same place, that can vary, because, like, if you're applying to the same person, like internally it goes to the same person. If they rejected you once, they'll probably reject you again. That's usually how it goes. There are exceptions, but usually that's how it goes, okay? But if you're applying to the same company, for example, or same organization, maybe there's two different departments. The first job application was for Department A that goes to person A, and they rejected you. But the second time you apply, it was for a different job in a different part of the company. It went to Department B, and it went to a different person B, and, you know, they're not aware that you even applied for something before, right? Two different departments, they don't talk to each other, they don't share their resume pool or, you know, whatever. Two different recruiters, two different hiring managers. right? So it could be like applying to a completely new job at a new organization. It won't have any effect. McKee9 says, how to answer, tell me about your worst boss kind of question. I have one boss who seemed like the worst boss, but actually one of the best bosses. Could it be an answer to the question? Okay, that is a trick question. They are trying to trap you. Okay. In a job interview, never say anything negative. Never say anything bad. Never say anything bad about you. Like, I'm no good at this. I failed at that. I tried this once and it didn't work. Don't say any of that. They're going to try and get you to say that. They're going to try their damnedest to get you to give them the dirt on you, right? They're going to ask you all these questions like, tell me about your weakness. What's your biggest failing? Who was your worst boss? And they're baiting you because what they're looking for is for you to go, my worst boss, it was a guy called John, and he was an idiot, and his problem was he didn't know how to manage, and I couldn't stand him, and I was so tired of his crap. You're bad-mouthing someone. Now, what that signals is that you're the type of person, because they don't know you, this is a first impression, it signals that you're the type of person that's going to badmouth somebody behind their back, right? And it signals that you don't work well with a boss, right? You're giving this away. So they're making the assumption that if we hire you, you're not going to get along with your boss. You're going to badmouth them behind their back, and it's not going to work out. So you've just eliminated yourself, right? So don't fall for the bait. The answer is to say, well, my worst boss, I don't know. I mean, he wasn't that bad. We were actually friends, and then you give something totally innocuous, okay? Totally like understandable. Maybe a side effect, like the thing I always say, the side effect of doing something good, right? This previous boss of mine, he wasn't actually that bad. We were actually friends, but because he had so much to do, he didn't really have enough time to sit down with me and train me like I would have liked. And that could have been done better, but in the end it worked out, and I overcame the lack of training. I got my training from coworkers, and in the end it all worked out. So that was so I still succeeded, and I still made it work. The end, right? There's your answer. You didn't give up anything bad. You didn't fall into their trap, right? Okay. Now obviously you create a custom answer that's true for you. But I mean, that's just an example. I'm not saying you say that exact thing. Say something that's true for you, okay? But that's the type of answer you want to give. You do not want to fall into their trap. Same with when they ask you what's your weakness, or what's your biggest flaw, or what's your worst quality, those are tricky. They're trying to get you to give them the dirt on you. And it's so stupid because when you talk to a lot of recruiters who are your adversary in this exchange, and you're asking them what they think you should do, what they recommend you do, they always recommend that you play right into their hand. They say, what do they say? They say, just be honest. Be honest. Show that, what we want to know is that you are self-aware enough that you realize you have flaws and you're working on them, right? Isn't that the thing that they always say? BS. Absolute BS. Now, there might be a couple of recruiters out there, the really good ones, that actually do think like that, okay? Great, I applaud them. They're doing a hell of a job. But what we see in the real world is that that's not what's going on. They are interviewing maybe 8 people for one position. They have to eliminate 7. So how are they going to eliminate them? Well, you just gave them a reason right there. You have trouble with authority. You have trouble with your previous bosses. It was a big deal in the past. Well, that's pretty much you out of the running right there, right? The people that tend to pass that round are the ones that don't give them anything incriminating, right? This can be annoying as hell for, more introverted types of people, people that are less diplomatic, they have less social skills. They want to keep it real. You ask me a question, I take the question at face value. I give you an honest, full and complete answer. Why am I eliminated for doing that? I was honest and I answered your question as opposed to the person who didn't, right? Why am I eliminated? Aggravating, isn't it? Because this is a sales pitch. You're selling yourself. It's not an informational interview. It's not an exchange of information. This is a sales pitch. You're trying to make a first impression, and you don't make a good first impression by telling them how bad you are about things and how you've had all kinds of problems in the past, because that's going to be who you are to them. Hopefully that makes sense. I could go on forever about this. I often do, but there you go. Okay, I'm falling further and further behind in the questions. I have to speed this up here. Okay, where did I leave off here? I've completely lost where I am. Okay, Mickey9, how to answer, tell me about yourself, did that. Alf 2009, did that. Mickey9, I think I did that, right? Okay, all about your boss. He always helped me. My coworkers started seeing that he was unfriendly, intimidating. He barely smiled or chatted. Could this be an answer? No. Based on what I said, obviously you should see why that's not the answer now. I mean, look, you're doing a good thing. You're actually getting an honest answer to the question, an accurate answer. But you got to understand that's not the answer that will in 90% of the cases that will allow you to pass the interview. You see, everybody presents themselves as awesome, on their resume and on their application. I have this, I got that, I got this, I got that, right? I'm perfect, right? So interviewers try to break through that. They want to get to the real story. They want to see who you really are. Nobody's perfect. Everybody's got kind of skeletons in their closet, failures, lack of skills in different areas, things that they've been given an opportunity and they didn't succeed. That's what they want to hear about you so that they can use that to eliminate you, right? You got several people competing for one position. So that's the way that they eliminate people, right? That's the big way they eliminate people. The other element of how to eliminate people is whether they like you as a person, whether it just clicks, right? So getting in there and being friendly and, being personable and being easy to talk to, that's a huge part of it. It's stupid, but it's true. Sirkan, is that how you say that? Sirkan? Burson? Hello, I'm a talent acquisition specialist. Oh, okay, in Europe for an agency specialized in sales and executive hiring. Why are you here, man? or ma'am? Previously I was working as an internal recruiter. You should know this stuff really well. Doing mainly phone interviews for 10 minutes. Now I have to do a video call every time for 45 minutes and write long feedback. I feel underqualified. Okay. Because I don't have the experience, I am having troubles finding the important details or notice them after the meetings. I tried to prepare questions up front after checking the deeply CV, but did not work. Any suggestions? Okay, listen. You're doing this in a very regimented, planned way. Okay, nothing wrong with that. But what you might find would be more revealing. This is just my personal take on this. I don't know what policies they have in your particular role on how you're supposed to conduct a phone interview, but the way I would do these things is I would write down 3 or 4 questions to maybe either, number 1, to start off the conversation, and then number 2, to if these are things that you absolutely want to get an answer to. Okay. For example, what are your salary requirements? Do you have experience doing this type of activity? Those are critical questions. You need to get an answer to those. But other than that, if you're trying to get an insight into the candidate, I would leave it a little bit more open. I would have a conversation with them. So in order to do that, you start by asking them a question, and if nothing else, you can always fall back on their resume. Presumably you have their resume. So you could say okay, the most relevant experience. You had a job here, okay? And it says that you were a supervisor in a manufacturing facility for automobiles, like, cars, whatever, supervisor for a department for the car shop or something. Tell me about that. What was the nature of that work? How many people did you supervise? And then they start talking. And based on what they say, you then ask a follow-up question. You say, why did you do that? How did you find it? Right? So it isn't a pre-planned question. It's a question that's based off what they said as a previous answer. And what you get is a more free-flowing conversation where you get an insight into how the person thinks, what they're good at, what their preferences are, what their ambitions are, what they enjoy doing, what they don't enjoy doing, what their relationships are like to different types of people. You get all that insight by having this free-flowing conversation where you just keep asking them questions based on what they've said to you. Okay? And that will give you plenty to write about when you have to do a report, okay? Where you have to say, this was my impression of the person. They have this skill, they have that skill, they have this skill. They do have experience doing this. However, their weak point might be that they're very independently minded. They don't tend to just take orders at face value. They tend to question orders. If they don't see the validity of the order or the task, they tend to question it, and they tend to push back against it. This might be a problem. However, one of their strengths are that they seem to be able to work with many different types of people, and and so on. Like you can write all about that kind of thing. Okay. So that's how I would do it if I was in that role, and it wasn't against the policy of doing that type of work that you've been given. That'd be my recommendation. But good question. XBLMA says, in the job description, it says they want someone that is willing to fail fast and to learn lessons from failure. So if I get asked about failure, or am I willing to fail, how do I answer this? Okay, this is the type of question that, how can I put this? It's a crapshoot. You don't know what they want to hear, okay? And some people will want to hear one thing, and other people will want to hear the opposite, okay? Some people will, if you tell them all about how you failed and you've given them big failures, or certain types of failures, like it was a failure in a working relationship or something. For example, your manager gave you a responsibility, it didn't work out, it didn't succeed, you ruined the relationship with the manager no longer trusted you. You say something like that, maybe that just eliminates you outright, okay? Because there's too many negative signals there. Other people, will accept that. They'll say, okay, I can tell you've done some stuff. You've really been thrown into the deep end, and I'm sure that's great experience. It's better to fail at something ambitious than to have never been put in that situation, right? A lot of people don't recognize that. So depending on who you're talking to, they can interpret your answer as either good or bad. So you really just have to take your best shot, in my opinion. Unless you have any insight or indicators about the type of person you're talking to, whether they understand that. If it's an HR person, I would assume that they don't know what that's like. If it's an accountant type person, or someone that's in a very regulated, regimented field like accounting, medicine, law, I don't think they would really understand that too much. If, however, you're talking to an entrepreneur, like as an extreme example, they would say, oh, that's great. That's absolutely wonderful. That you've been thrown into the deep end and you've seen how this stuff works and some of the real dilemmas and the real challenges of doing this. It's great that you've had an introduction to that, And they would respond better to a story where it says that you were thrown into this big thing and you failed, but you learned a lot. They will really appreciate that. An HR person or an accountant, in my opinion, they probably won't, because that's kind of alien to their profession. You don't really get that a lot. You don't get accountants being thrown into a situation as part of their job that's completely alien to them, totally outside their comfort zone, totally outside their experience base, and they have to sink or swim. That's not typical of them. So it really depends on the person and what they're wanting to hear. And let's be honest, you're not a mind reader, okay? So it's a matter of random chance. Take your best shot. You can be more honest. You'd rather be damned if you do than damned if you don't. And if they reject you because of it, then probably that job might not have worked out anyway. You know what I mean? Or at least working with that interviewer might not have worked out anyway. Okay. If possible, it might be possible to say all the right things. What people want to hear is that you have failed without details about it. They want to hear that you can learn from failure. They want to hear that you understand that, one really fast way of learning is to learn by failing. Okay. But they don't want to hire someone who's a failure. That's the trick to this. They don't want someone who's going to come into the job and just fail, right? So they want to hear that you failed in the past, you've learned from it, you understand how it's a learning opportunity and you've taken the lessons and you haven't made the same mistake twice, but then you've succeeded and they're hiring someone who's going to succeed. That's what they want. But how do you convince them of that? It depends on the person. Was that wordy enough for you? My mouth is getting dry. I have a cold, the common cold that's going around, and I am medicated right up so that I can function. But I think it means that I'm not as quick-witted as I normally am, which is not saying much. Here we go. Sirkin Burson again says, I have just started. This is my third week. Now that was the... Okay, which one was this again? Doing mainly phone interviews. Okay, that was the HR specialist. Okay. Sirkin says, thanks a lot. I've asked you because you are more qualified than many HR here in Europe, and your positive answers always give motivation. Well, thank you. Thank you. That's very nice of you. And I'm glad you value it. Thanks again from the Czech Republic. Right on. I remember when it was Yugoslavia. It's even like, what's it been, 30 years? I still have to it's not Czechoslovakia. It's Czech Republic and Slovakia, right? So Czech Republic is Prague and Slovakia is Bratislava, right? Okay, XBLMA. Should I answer all questions in a story format like the STAR method or let it flow naturally? I'm interviewing with a head of cloud IT services and a principal security architect. Well, the STAR method is great for when you want to tell a story, like about a past experience. So we call those questions behavioral questions. They're going to ask a question and they'll usually phrase it, tell me about a time X, that you did this or that this happened or that you had to handle that. Tell me about a time. So you answer with a story. Now, if you have to tell a story, a good format is the STAR format. Situation, task, action, result. And it's great to sort of keep you on task so you don't just babble in a stream of consciousness thing that just goes on for 5 minutes and, quite frankly, doesn't do you any favors. So it's good for telling a story, but obviously you're not going to use the STAR method for every question that they throw at you. Like, for example, tell me about yourself. Don't use the STAR method. How much salary do you need? Don't use the STAR method. There's a lot of questions. Why did you leave your last job? Don't use the STAR method. Who was the worst boss you ever had to deal with? Don't use the STAR method, right? It's only for questions that start with, tell me about a time that, you did this, right? And then you're telling them a story that's particular to you and it happened to you in the past. That's when you use the STAR method for behavioral questions. Virginia Slim, how often does your subscribers return with your feedback, positive and negative? I don't know, every so often. I mean, I have, what do I have? Like 400,000 subscribers. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from my courses, and I've got a lot of views on my videos, and you can see the comments on my videos, so that should answer your question. There you go. So there we go. We've come to the end of the questions. I finally caught up. If anyone has any last questions, ask them now or forever hold your peace. I will be signing off in a couple of minutes unless I get any questions. I would like to draw everyone's attention. If you haven't seen it already, I usually press these buttons here and try to make it more visually interesting. It doesn't work, by the way, but it's the thought that counts. But if you haven't seen it already, there's this course here, my Get Hired course. Several hundred people have taken that in the last couple of years, and I've gotten some good feedback from it. It's basically my recommendation of how you would get a job. Okay, for entry-level jobs up to mid-management level. My recommended method with templates and details and all that kind of stuff. It's about how to do basically two methods. One is responding to job ads with job applications and a resume. The other is one type of networking, which is, I don't know if it's tailored to introverts, but it's something that introverts can do. It's basically where you use social media to target hiring managers, contact them, and get something going. So if any of that is interesting to you, check out the link in the description box below. There's a link to that course, and I've also made a video that goes into details about the course and how it works and what you're getting and all that kind of stuff. So you know what you're jumping into. So in the efforts of transparency. Okay, XBLMA says, should I talk about my company research at the end of the interview? Well, if they ask you, sure, yeah. If they ask you a question where that would be an appropriate answer, sure. But, just unprompted, if you're not really sure if they honestly care, I would say no. Listen, people don't care about things that they should care about. That's a fact of life. You're going to find that. So in an interview, you might go to a job interview thinking that, these people need to understand that I'm qualified in this way. This is something I've done. I'm really proud of it. And it shows that I'm like really qualified. I'm a perfect fit for this job, right? You might think that. But if they don't think that, they don't see that as something important. They don't even know what that is. It will do no good to talk all about it in great length, right? Because they don't understand that that's a good thing. You know what I'm saying? It's stupid, but it's often true, right? So if the subject of your research is an appropriate answer to a question they're asking, or that it's something that they value because they've asked about it or they've said they're looking for it, definitely. Otherwise, it just falls under the category of information about you that's probably good, but it's secondary to convincing them. You understand? The interview is not about you. It's about them. They want to hear certain things. You want to make sure that you tell them those things that they care about, not things that you care about that they don't, right? You understand? It's about them, not about you. Mickey9 says, thank you for today's stream and answering my question, Bill. You're absolutely welcome, Mickey9, and thank you for joining me today. You are working on self-improvement. You're trying to improve yourself. You're trying to get answers to questions. That's great. You keep going down this road, in a certain amount of time, you are going to know your stuff. Okay. So good job. You could be sitting on your butt. You could be playing video games. You could be doing whatever, wasting time, but you're improving yourself. So you should feel good about that. Elf 2009. Thank you, Bill, for your help. I will let you know if something happens in my Florida search. Yes, I wish you all the best luck at that, Elf. And as I say, as many leads as you can. Don't stop trying to get new leads. Pursue the ones that you have, but never stop trying to get new ones until you have something in the bag. You're absolutely welcome, XBLMA. You're awesome. You asked some pretty intelligent questions yourself. Annie, how do you say this? Uwaga says, hello, Bill. I had a phone interview with a recruiter on Friday for a sales position. It lasted an extra 20 minutes or so because we got along really well. How do my chances look of progressing? Well, I can't say that. I don't know. No one can say that, Annie. You do the best you can, and you keep pursuing opportunities. And sooner or later, something will work out, okay? Recruiters are notoriously untruthful. They will never tell you how you really did. They will avoid any type of awkward conversation, so giving you bad news. They will never explain why something didn't work out or why they decided not to go ahead with you, if that's what happens. If they do give a reason, it's pretty much guaranteed to be, just a lie. They don't want to go into it, so they just say something, for the sake of saying something. You don't know. No one knows. It's unfortunate. We all have curiosity to find out what was really going on the other side, right? But you will never know. Don't worry about it. As long as you did a good job, as long as you felt you did a good job, if you're doing a good job, sooner or later, something will come along. If you keep doing this for a very long period of time and nothing seems to come along, then maybe go back and try and question, try and improve maybe what you're doing. Maybe there's something that you're doing that isn't working out as well as you think it is. But other than that, don't sweat it. You don't need to know what's going on the other end. It doesn't matter. You're not going to think about these people anymore. You're going to move on to the next opportunity, and you're going to keep going. And it's optimistic and hopeful because there's always a new opportunity around the corner. Okay? The more you sit and wait by the phone, the more it feels negative. It feels discouraging. Okay? And that's all an illusion, by the way. Okay? So anyway, thank you guys. I will see you soon. I wish you all the best in your job search endeavors and in your careers. And you're all awesome. Take care.